2, 3, 4.
Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk coming to you from NASA Community College on 90.3 WHBC, also streaming on the iHeart and the iTunes app. And of course, this program is later archived on Spreaker.com. So hi there. My name is, guess right, you got it, it's Rabbi Perl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It all depends when you are listening and joining us. Well, today I'm going to discuss Wednesday. I know it's Sunday, but we're going to talk about Wednesday. This coming Wednesday on the Jewish calendar is the 15th day of the month of Menachem Av. And it is a very mysterious day. If you look into the Code of Jewish Law, it reveals no particular observances or customs for this day, except for leaving out the Tachanun. And nevertheless, it does mention that this 15th day of Av, which coincides this year, this coming Wednesday, is a day when we should start increasing our studies of Torah, since the nights are beginning to grow longer, and the night is created for study. And also the Talmud tells us that many years ago, the daughters of Jerusalem would go to dance in the vineyards on this day, on the 15th day of Av, and whoever did not have a wife would go there to find himself a bride. So this was like a kosher Jewish Sadie Hawkins day. And the Talmud considers this day, the 15th day of Menachem Av, as one of the greatest festivals of the year, with Yom Kippur a close second. So let's talk a little bit about this concept that relates to the brides in Jerusalem going and finding one's bashert, finding one's bride. Let's talk a little bit about the institution of marriage. It's something very important for us to consider. See, marriage is comprised of two integral elements: commitment and love. Beneath the chuppah, the bride and the groom pledge to remain faithful and loyal to each other, committing their all to bringing happiness and stability to their relationship. While the shared commitment constitutes the foundation of the relationship, it is the passion, the love, the feelings for each other which bring color and life to the relationship and makes marriage so attractive. It is this latter element that really causes bachelors to surrender their freedoms and bachelorettes to put up with a member of the remote control hugging sensitivity challenge gender. No, all joking apart. The necessity, though, of both these ingredients is really there to ensure a happy and a stable marriage, and everybody agrees this undisputed. This is how it has to be. Which of these two values, though, should form the basis of the marriage, however, is a point of contention between Torah values and Western norms, and that's what we're discussing today. Should love lead to commitment, or should commitment lead to love? The current society's trends in this area is clear. Get to know the person for a few years, perhaps live together for a period of time, and the plunge is taken if it is apparent that the mutual feelings warrant this, what we would call, colossal marriage commitment. So I'm here to tell you, my friends, totally in contrast with this way of thinking, Jewish tradition advocates an almost opposite approach. Acquaint yourself with an individual well enough to determine whether his or her values and temperament are in line with your own. Ascertain that your two personalities don't clash, and see that there is a budding attraction. If all of these pieces are in place, then the commitment is made. The love will develop and deepen after the commitment, based on the commitment. So rather than being first love and then commitment, it's first commitment and then love. So if the proof in the pudding, this pudding certainly demonstrates that the Jewish approach works. It is clear that getting to know and love one another before marriage does not increase the odds of subsequently having a happy marriage. And this makes perfect sense. If the commitment is based on love, then the commitment can very well wane or disappear if and when the love fades or vanishes. No? Don't you agree with me? If the love is based on a commitment, then even if at times the love grows faint, the commitment will ensure that the two make the effort to fall in love again. So, according to the Torah, marriage is a two-step process. The first stage is called Kiddushin, and the second step is known as Nisuin. Kiddushin renders the bride and groom fully fledged husband and wife. I'm sure you've been to a Jewish wedding, and the rabbi who leads it, they drink the cup twice because there's two sections. The first is Kiddushin. As I say, it renders the bride and groom fully fledged husband and wife. After this point, if God forbid they decide to part ways, a Jewish get, a Jewish divorce would be required. However, the bride and the groom are not permitted to live together as husband and wife until the second stage, called the Nisuin. And that's when it's completed. Now, in olden days, these two parts would actually be done at different points, maybe even a year apart. But in modern times, both the Kiddushin and the Nisuin, these two dimensions, are accomplished successively beneath the chuppah. The Kiddushin is effected when the groom gives the bride the wedding brand, and the Nisuin, the second stage, through the husband uniting with his wife under one roof for the sake of marriage. First comes Kiddushin, the commitment. Only then follows the Nisuin, all the expressions of love. So the recipe this is the recipe, my friends, for a committed and happy marriage. First there's the commitment, then comes the love. If it's based on love, love can wane, and when love wanes and there's no commitment, we would say in French, "Achem veitze Columbus," if you're allowed to say that anymore now that we don't find any more Christopher Columbus monuments around. So I have to change my speech. So on the 15th day of Av, this coming Wednesday, it's called Tu B'Av, we observe and celebrate, really, in a sense, a most joyous bounce-back holiday. Right? Think about it. This day marks the anniversary, as I mentioned, of several special events that all associated with the reversal of all the tragic events that we recently celebrated. What are we talking about? We're talking about the holiday. This holiday, this Wednesday, comes just 6 days after the saddest day of the year, Tisha B'Av, which was this past Thursday. And of course, this concept is symbolic of our nation's resiliency, our capacity to recover from all the tragedies which befall us, which is very important. This is also, as I said, and explaining, is a marriage-themed holiday. The Talmud describes how in the ancient times this was a day devoted to matchmaking. This is because marriage represents the bounce back from the greatest tragedies which occurred on Tisha B'Av, which was the destruction of the holy temples and our people's ensuing bitter exile. Our relationship with God is also comprised of both basic elements, which I just mentioned, commitment and love. Before the love is manifest, we must first undergo the commitment stage, the Kiddushin, stage 1. Therefore, the destruction of the temples and the exiles. But after 2,000 blood-stained years, we have now proven our commitment beyond any shadow of a doubt. It is now time for the Nisuin, the cosmic, so to speak, Nisuin between Hashem and all of us, which will be celebrated with the imminent arrival of Mashiach. So though the holiday of the 15th of Av is not mentioned in the Bible, it is in the Mishnah at the end of the tractate Tanis, tells us that Israel had no greater holidays than the 15th of Av and Yom Kippur. Amazing. On these days, the daughters of Jerusalem would go out to the vineyards and dance and find their match. And the Talmud asks, it's clear why Yom Kippur is a great holiday. Why? We always know that. It's a day of great forgiveness for the sin of the golden calf. And the second tablets were given, so that's why we're so celebrating on Yom Kippur. But what is this 15th of Av all about? And the Talmud answers that numerous joyous events happened on this day, which on this year will be this Wednesday. And when you examine these events that occurred on the 15th of Av, it seems that the question is hardly answered, though. None of these events, even the combination of them, seems to justify of why we establish a holiday. And that one that outshines even all others, even Yom Kippur, right? Yom Kippur comes in second. So can any of the 15th of this Av's events hold a candle? How can we make this into the greatest, no other greater holiday than this? Can we hold a candle to the Exodus from Egypt? Or the salvation from genocide commemorated on Purim? So how do we understand it? What is so special about this? Perhaps the key to understanding the unparalleled joy, the joyous nature of this holiday, lies in the particular manner in which it was celebrated. Going back to what we said, the girls of marriageable age would assemble in the vineyards, dance in front of the audience of prospective suitors, in the hope of finding a soulmate. And the Talmud, the Mishnah actually says, it discusses this. Like, what is so remarkable about this day? And the fact that the maidens would go out and find themselves marriage partners. What does this mean? See, mystically speaking, marriage isn't just a union between a man and a woman. It's a reunion. What is a marriage, a true marriage? A soul divided into two halves, one half descend into this world in the male body, and the other in the female's body. So marriage is a joyous reunion of those two estranged halves. Every husband and wife is predestined for each other, not only because they complement each other perfectly, but because they actually share a soul. Very, very, very important. This is why, of all loving relationships, the love between husband and wife is the most electric, you could say, and most passionate. This passion is the result of years of separation, years of a soul's yearning to achieve wholesomeness through reuniting with its long-lost other half. When the two finally find each other and reconnect, the resulting emotions are dizzyingly intense. So on a cosmic level, man and woman are metaphors for God and ourselves. The soul of each of us is a chelik elikai, a veritable part of God. We are essentially one with the Creator, just as a husband and wife are derived from one essence. And we too undergo this process of estrangement and reunion. A process, just like we have between the husband and wife, and man and woman, so too we have this process that whole intention is to heighten the love and the passion, to bring it to levels of unimaginable had we never experienced separation. So the first time our nation was estranged from God was shortly after our betrothal at Mount Sinai. Right? What happened? There was a marriage and a few weeks later, we drifted away and worshipped the golden calf. The reconciliation and redoubled commitment and love occurred on Yom Kippur, the second greatest holiday on our calendar. That is why there was just a relatively short estrangement on Tisha B'Av with the destruction of the holy temples and the commencement of these 2,000 plus years of exile. We embarked upon a very long stretch of estrangement. The goal is to reach the pinnacle of passion and head over heels infatuation. The result of this estrangement will be the grandest wedding of all times with the coming of Mashiach, which will usher in an era of eternal marital bliss. So it is this ultimate marriage that we celebrate on the 15th of Av. So here we are, just in between these days, from last Thursday, Tisha B'Av, to Wednesday, just a mere 6 days away after Tisha B'Av, and we celebrate it like no other holiday, because it symbolizes our rebound, the reconciliation that follows the estrangement of Tisha B'Av and its raison d'etre. That is why the Talmud points to various events that occurred on this date, of which share the same theme, reunion, that follows a period of estrangement. Very powerful. Remember, God speaks to Moses in a loving way after nearly 40 years, a more of a distant kind of communication. The daughters of Zelophehad are permitted to marry whomever they wish. We all know the history of the tribe of Benjamin. They were now allowed to reunite with their brothers, which ended a very painful schism. We all know there were certain centuries that created a divide between the northern and the southern kingdom. Well, on the 15th day, they were removed. So you see, and goes on, and that is why the maidens danced on the 15th. This was the day on Yom Kippur. There's no more appropriate marriage-themed day on this calendar than these 2 days. And of the two, of course, the 15th is the more joyous one, for it symbolizes the ultimate marriage. Of all Jewish celebrations, none equal the joy of a wedding. Of all Jewish holy days, none equal the joy of the 15th day of this month of Av. So that's why I'm sharing this with you, dear friends, so we are all prepared for this coming Wednesday's joyous day. Now I want to share with you some sayings from the Torah that will help us change how we view our spouse. So again, this week we're marking the 15th day of Av, a day when we celebrate Jewish matchmaking and marriage. So I went through the sources and I found 7 inspirational teachings from the Torah about Jewish marriage and relationships. So let's remember first Adam and Eve. They were the original power couple. And God said, it's not good for man to be alone. It was after these words that he created Eve, thus completing the world's first power couple. So here is the first concept to have in mind. Husband and wife are really part of that original power couple, Adam and Eve. Another concept, you win or you lose. A good relationship is not only the secret sauce behind a life of peace, tranquility, and joy, but also the key to drawing down unique blessings from Creator. So when you talked about husband and wife being together and having commitment and love, it's about that peace. When there's peace in the home, it actually, not only is there peace in the home, and the neighbors can go to sleep, but seriously, when there's peace in the home, it actually brings unique blessings down from the Almighty God. Rabbi Akiva, the famous Rabbi Akiva, tells us in the Talmud, he keying off the Hebrew words for husband, which is ish, aleph, yud, shin, and the Hebrew word for wife is isha, aleph, shin, hey. If you look at that, they combine, they both have an aleph and a shin, which represents fire, ish, and they both have a yud. One has a yud, man has a yud, ish, and a woman has a isha. So you have the word fire, ish, and God's name, yud, k. So husband and wife, if they are meritorious, the divine presence, the Shekhinah, dwells among them. If they are not, if there's no godliness in their marriage, there's no Yud and the K, which is God's name, all we're left is with the Aleph and the Shin, which represents fire and negativity. Another important aspect, another more teaching that we can have in mind is in the Ketubah, the marriage contract between husband and wife, many people have the verse that include the verse from the Proverbs. What is it? The word? He who finds a wife has found good and earns the favor of God. So a good marriage, have this in mind, a good marriage is the vessel for bringing God's blessings into our lives. Another important aspect is, the Zohar tells us, that marriage isn't just a guy and a girl brought together by happenstance, but rather, as I mentioned, a husband and wife are one soul, separated only through their descent into this world. When they are married, they are reunited once again. Another important thing. So important is the peace between husband and wife that Jewish law states that it can even override some other mitzvahs. For example, the Talmud teaches that if a person is strapped for cash and must choose between buying a Hanukkah candle and a Shabbos candle that provides for light and tranquility in the home on Friday nights when we light the Shabbos candle, you only have enough money to buy one candle. Should you buy it for the Friday night, or should you buy it for Hanukkah candle? The answer is we buy the Shabbos candle. It's more important than the Hanukkah candle because the Shabbos candle symbolizes the imperativeness and the importance of peace, as we would call shalom bayis, peace to the home. Number 6, another important aspect is we find this importance on peace between husband and wife, not only relative to the candles in the house, but even in regards to the very sanctity of God's name. There was a ceremony back in biblical times that if there was a feud going on between husband and wife, and the husband was suspecting the wife of infidelity, there was a whole ceremony, a ritual, in order to bring peace between the husband and wife. And in this ritual, it also included writing God's name on a piece of parchment, and it was put into special water, and it was erased. So the very name of God is erased, because this ceremony would prove that she was not in any way involved in infidelity. So the very name of God is erased and ground into the water that the wife drinks as part of the ceremony, in order to prove there's peace. As the Talmud tells us, great is peace, that we find the Holy One, blessed be He, will waive the holiness of His own name, that it'll be written in holiness and then erased in water. For what reason? In order to bring peace between husband and wife. See, this is what I'm sharing with that, the importance of what marriage is all about. And this coming Wednesday, Tu B'Av, is really all about that. Now, there's another of these teachings that are very much to help us appreciate our marriage. This is what the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson of sainted memory, wrote to one of his writers, one of his followers, who had complained about trouble at home. And the Rebbe writes, "It is incumbent upon you and your wife to each do what is dependent on them to bring their hearts together and strengthen peace in the home. And if they truly desire this, then surely they will success." So, dear friends, while most of us have been to the synagogue on Yom Kippur, and I'm encouraging you to stay in touch with your own synagogues to learn of what their plans are. We in Mineola, Chabad of Mineola, are going to have, we're continuing under a very, very strict health guidelines. We'll be offering 2 rotating services. One we call a traditional full length, but it'll start earlier and finish much earlier. And that's from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. on 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, which includes on the Sunday blowing of the shofar. And then each day we'll also offer a later service, a much shorter, we call a highlighted service. It includes the sermon, includes the special songs for much less time. But we will insist that everybody will have their seats reserved in advance, so we can know in advance how many people we can allow in the synagogue, to have safety in terms of social distancing, as well as, of course, wearing of the masks. But there again, most of us go to the synagogue, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, we munch matzah, Pesach Seder, we watch, of course, Uncle Marvin candle the Hanukkah menorah, while noshing on Aunt Sally's oily latkes. All right, we may have dressed as clowns and with our kids on Purim. And we had the morning of the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av, last week, when the temples were destroyed. Now, these are all remarkable days on our calendar. But then most people, and that's why I share this with you, they draw a blank. Rabbi, what are you talking about, Tu B'Av? What's this all about, the 15th day of the month of Av, which is coming up this Wednesday? So how many of us draw a blank, stare into the eye? What are you talking about? Yet, I want to bring home this point. The Talmud tells us there are no greater festivals for Israel than the 15th of Av and Yom Kippur. Seriously? Comparing this unknown day to the holiest day in our nation's calendar? Again, what is so special? I want to underline this, so special about the 15th of Av. And again, another aspect of this concept of marriage. The Talmud tells us that when the young maidens would go into the vineyards in Jerusalem to find their match, the daughters of Jerusalem would go out in borrowed linen garments, so as not to embarrass those without beautiful clothes of their own. And they would dance in the vineyards. And whoever did not have a wife would go there to find himself a bride. As I said, there are so many deep explanations about this day. But my take on all of this is very basic. But it is at the core of what I love and what we all love about Judaism. Judaism tells us to strive for heavens, but keeping our feet grounded on the earth. The message of the 15th of Av is so down to earth. Experiencing the mystery of marriage. Taste the wonder of love. See the beauty of two very diverse people uniting in body, in heart, and in soul to create harmony in our world. Observe the selflessness of two individuals coming together despite personal barriers. For what reason? To bring new life to our world. And as we do that, we realize we are witnessing holiness. And when I have an honor to officiate a marriage, that's how I feel about them. They're bringing holiness into this world. And during this Zoom period, or this COVID-19 period, I've been part of, officiating marriages. And it's amazing to see at the end of the day, it's not about the flowers. It's not about how many pieces band, how many choices of food that we have, and all the other hours and hours and hours of catered event. It's all about, my friend, the Chosna Kala. Judaism comes and tells us that the 15th day of Av is no less holy than the hallowed day of what? Of Yom Kippur. When we fast and we forgo all our bodily needs to quest for spiritual heights. Comes this coming Wednesday, it's the exact opposite. Why? Because this was a day that marriages were forged. And marriage is a holy institution. That's one more important point. So that's what the Talmud is telling us. The girls would wear borrowed clothing so no one would be embarrassed. No high fashion, clothing surrounded in luxurious posh mansions. No petty competitiveness to outshine one another. Where do they go out to find a potential match? They dance joyously in the vineyards, right? In simple, borrowed linen garments. Gewalt geschrigen. Think about it. Think about all the money wasted. I guess all the caterers are going to be very upset with me. But that's the point, my friend. The matchmaking festivity underscored. Look beyond the outer shell. And listen, I'm not against a nice, beautiful wedding, Gesundheit, but at the end of the day, what's it all about? Look into the deeper soul connection. In our society, when sanctity of marriage is being eroded, when our values have become so shallow and our ideals have been battered, this coming Wednesday has a valuable message. Let's make the 15th of Av, this coming Wednesday, a day of increased love. Focus less on superficial externals and to think on what really matters in our life. And I believe during this period of COVID-19, it's reminding us of what's really essential. This is your host, Rabbi Perl, wishing you a wonderful week, a wonderful Wednesday, and a Monday, and a Tuesday, and a Thursday, and a Friday, and a whole week. Sei gesund, stay well and healthy. All the best.
1, 2, 3, 4.